Welcome to Curious Goldfish, a podcast community where music and curiosity come together through interesting conversations with the music makers of our world. I'm your host, Jason English. You can find Curious Goldfish in all the major podcast and social media platforms. And of course, we have all of our content on our website, curiousgoldfish.com. Hey, Teri, thanks for joining. Great to meet you. Happy holidays.
You too. Yeah.
I think you grew up in Chicago. How important are the holidays to you, whether it's childhood memories or today? And do you have a specific tradition that you sort of anchor to?
I feel like certain holidays are more important than others. Honestly, Thanksgiving wasn't a huge deal in my family, but then Christmas was the biggest deal in the world. And my dad was basically Father Christmas and would turn the living room into Christmas wonderland. And I feel like we have so many traditions that are so random. We had a t-shirt every year that my dad would give out on Christmas Eve, and it was a big thing that happened that year, whether it's someone got married, someone had a kid, we went on a cool vacation. We do that every year still. And then my mom grew up in Iowa, in Centerville, Iowa, and so we always have Centerville strata on Christmas morning. So those are
Is that a pastry? Is that a dish? What is that?
a super unhealthy egg dish that's cheese, ham, cornflakes on top. It's so good
Oh,
and
yummy.
totally unhealthy.
That sounds like an Iowa dish for sure. That's
Right.
amazing. So you mentioned your father. I guess didn't Clark Griswold in Christmas Vacation, didn't that take place in Chicago?
Yeah, it did.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
a few suburbs over from where I grew up.
yeah. So that's cool, and it's not surprising that when you talked about your memories of that you led with your father, right? So you're promoting a new album, and I think many of those songs were inspired by him and his memory, right?
Yes, I lost my dad to sarcoma cancer 2.5 years ago, July 9th of 22. And I was writing most of these songs around that time before he passed and then in the aftermath. And so I feel like it is interesting, the name Not Done Yet. Those were my dad's last words. I'm not done yet. And but it also there's a common thread through all the songs. That it's this album's about perseverance in the music industry and keep following your dreams and don't give up. But then also the legacy that my dad left me was to persevere through the hardest of times.
That's awesome. What was his name?
John O'Brien.
John O'Brien. All right, that's awesome that you made the album sort of in tribute to him. I guess other than the holidays, when you think about your dad growing up and the relationship that you had, what are some of the other memories that you cling to?
Well, the other thing, I guess I say that I was writing some songs and I did take 7 months off. My dad was a songwriter, and he was a businessman, but then he would take our already existing songs and rewrite the lyrics to them. And he was always performing. He was a singer, and he was always performing at any party. So like that's a super strong thing that we have in common. Like
Yeah,
he kind of taught me how to write songs and how to be up in front of people and singing. And yeah, and it was something I was writing a lot that summer, but then I did take 7 months off I was like, I need a break. But yeah, those are some memories. And just traveling. He loved to travel. We were talking about London before the podcast started, but he loved to shop, and also he loved to steak dinners. Going out to steak dinners and sitting at the bar. My dad always sat at the bar he loved to sit at the bar and watch a game.
nice.
And now I love to do that. So sorry, I
No,
digress.
that's awesome. Yeah, I'd love to hear that. That's really cool. You had such a tight relationship. So some of the songs obviously were directly and maybe indirectly sort of related to him. I think one of those was "Old Woman." Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Uh, and I think I've read some of the notes around that was sort of inspired during a road trip when you were driving.
Yeah, and sorry to keep talking about this, but I was driving a lot back and forth between Nashville and Chicago, and, I think some things going through my head were I think aging in general is
Hmm.
hard, I think especially if you're in the music industry, and even they say, being in music is a young person's game and you're, like, not allowed to age, and so I was kind of thinking about that, but then, my dad was battling cancer, and I wrote it I was writing it with somebody, a really good writer in LA. Okay, super insane, but I was in this program at the time 2 summers ago, and I wrote this song with a woman who wrote with Chappell Rowan. She wrote a couple of the songs on Chappell Rowan's album right now. But yeah, I was thinking about aging and what makes a life and what makes you successful in life. And will this pain, like, what at the end, will the joy outweigh the pain? Will I celebrate the battles that I overcame as opposed to the hardships, my failures? I don't know. I was really getting deep, Jason, that summer. And I just kept taking voice memos
Yeah.
on a drive from Nashville to Chicago.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, that's incredible. And you mentioned his love of music and the songwriting. I guess how proud of you was he when you got admitted to Berkeley and did that whole thing? I mean, that must have been he must have been over the moon about that.
Yeah, he was, but, Jason, you know what's actually kind of funny? Like, my family, I come from a very business-oriented family, and this where I'm from in the suburbs of Chicago, it's like you're either a lawyer, a doctor, or a businessman, and so my parents were not actually they pushed me to be musical, and then I graduated undergrad, and, my dad's like, "Okay, it's time to go into business and live in Chicago and make money." And I was, "No, actually, I think I want to apply to music school. I love music and I want to do this." And I will say there was a little bit of friction. And then I got into the school, and then my parents started telling their friends that I was going to go to this school, and they were like, "Oh my God, apparently this is a really good school. Oh, good job." Then they were, "Oh, okay. She knows what she's talking about."
I mean, it's one of the Berkeley, right? It's one of the most exclusive schools on music that you could attend. That's interesting. His perspective. Did he finally come around?
He did, he did. It was once I graduated and started I don't know, because he knew I was not gonna give it up, but I do think he was really he was proud of me and would be today, but
Yeah.
there was some friction in the beginning.
All
Like,
right.
yeah.
Well, that whole you know balancing music and art and creativity and expression with the business side of things. So I think one or two of those songs on Not Done Yet sort of directly relate to that topic, right? I think it's yeah, Worth the Money is
Yeah,
one about kind of probably on this topic, as I can sort of relate as a father. You need to go and make a living and pay the
yeah.
bills and do all that. I guess looking back, being a musician, is it harder than you thought it would be to handle the business side of things? And
Oh my god.
yeah,
It feels impossible.
yeah,
With that song, Worth the Money, I often think back to when I was, 21, 22, and I made this decision that I was going to be a musician. And I was told music's a hobby and there's no money in music. And I thought I would prove everybody wrong. I was so naive. I'm just going to be so good that I'm going to do what I love and I'm going to make millions. And so fast forward 10 years and it's like, what was I? Oh my God, I was so naive. What was I thinking? This is impossible. This feels impossible. At the end of the day, I'm satisfying my soul and like
mhm,
my truth and like what I'm here. I do believe I'm here to be a creative and make art. I'm doing exactly what I should be doing,
sure.
but I need money. I need to make money.
We'll take up an offering at the end of the episode here. No,
Yeah.
did your dad, did he appreciate that aspect of things? And
He-
because as a businessman, right? I mean, what was his perspective on that specifically?
like It as far as, like, following your dreams
Well, like
or
following your dreams, but he wanted you to go and have a job or, quote
yeah.
unquote real job. Was he like, hey, this is kind of what I was referring to, or was he helpful in helping you try to figure it out? And
He was helpful.
yeah,
He was every step of the way, and especially when I started going to Berkeley, then he was looking into the majors and, "Oh, what could she major in, and how could she turn this into a career?" And then, even after I started my band, Bronte Fall, in Chicago, and he came to all the meetings with me. I met my first manager and PR. He was super involved in all of that and
okay, great,
helping me turn it into a business. We met with a lawyer. I have an LLC.
yeah,
Like, we really tried to approach it from a business standpoint.
okay, well, that's
Um,
awesome.
yeah.
I am curious, and I'm not really curious into the dollars and cents of it, but
Yeah.
if you picture a pie chart, how does that break down in terms of like the revenue, just in terms of percentages? Because I think I've heard other artists say that in the old days, 20 years ago, you would go on tour to promote the record, and now it's you make a record to promote sort of a tour. Can you relate to that?
Totally, because
Yeah.
I mean, pre-streaming, you'd make all your money on record sales,
Hmm.
and, now you make a record so that you can go on tour and make money, and
Yeah.
a lot of it, people say, is in the merch, and you, like, make money on the road. So 'cause I'll say with all the stream I have to look at my distribution company, like, pre the album coming out and pre worth the money. I was up to getting like $500 for like 4 releases this year, which actually isn't terrible. I was like, "Oh, this is like more like, that's great."
Yeah.
The album hadn't come out yet, but, um, yeah, I'm supposed to make more money on the touring side,
Right.
and you can get like, I play a lot, like, in the Midwest, Michigan,
Hmm.
Indiana, and when you play those breweries, you can make, like, 600 to $800 each up at those places,
Sure.
but then there's other places where you have to sell tickets,
Right.
and you don't make as much there, but then you can make it up with selling the merch because those, like, are, like, real fans who came to see you.
Sure.
It's a whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the percentages, I'm just curious, is it mostly then just kind of a mix of the ticket revenue or the touring revenue and then the merch, and then the streaming is probably some
Yeah.
pennies on the dollar, right?
Yeah, that's really what it
Yeah.
comes down to,
Yeah.
and unless you get your song becomes super successful, then you get a lot of mailbox money
Yeah.
from,
Yeah.
like a number 1 hit.
Sure.
That would be great.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, no, yeah, I can appreciate that. So
Yeah.
back to the title of the album, and you said it had different sorts of meanings, but on this topic, and then you're looking for your future as an artist. I mean,
Yeah,
are you not done yet? And
I'm not
just despite
yeah, it's
despite kind of the riffraff around the money and everything. I mean, do you see yourself doing this for decades to come?
yes, I really do, and that was just, like, kind of a stance where I feel like this is my 4th project.
Hmm.
The first one, I kinda didn't know what I was doing, in Chicago and just, like, put it out to put it out because I was just proud that I could make it an album, like, whatever, but now I'm 27, like, 8 years in 7 to 8 years in, and I'm like, "Wow, this is really hard.
Right.
This is not for the faint of heart. This is you gotta work, and you gotta grind, and you gotta hustle," and I feel like you hear that in a lot of my songs. And I did wanna, like, make a stance to be aging in the music industry. You feel like you have this window, but now there's artists I love that I like Sheryl Crow, Bonnie Raitt, uh, Brandi Carlile, like, all these people having their lifetime is their career,
Hmm.
and, so silly to think inside this little box, and I feel like that's kind of what I've been ruminating on this year. I don't know what's next, but I know that I'm not done.
All right, that's exciting.
Yeah.
So yeah, so the some of the themes of the album I think are like resilience and sort of I'll call it like woman empowerment and different topics like that. Actually, I just saw Wicked the movie this weekend. Have you seen that yet?
Oh, yes.
It's really good. For those of you that haven't seen it, it's you got to check that out. And I again preparing for this conversation, and when I saw that movie, I was like, okay, That's a Bronte Fall type of theme and ending, when all the defying gravity and that sort of thing. I guess, have you always had that sort of assertive mindset on that, or did it take a while for you to be comfortable with that?
It keeps forming. I feel like I've evolved, and the Bronte sisters, and I created this name. I sat at a cafe with my friend one day I started the band with her. She's no longer in it, clearly. But we listed off just like kind of interesting words. And I brought up the Bronte sisters because I remember learning about them in college, that they were authors, but they went under male pseudonyms because women weren't allowed to be authors, like in the 1850s or whatever. Um, and they have really famous books, obviously. But I remember loving that story. And then their books were kind of weird, like just like kind of dark and like
Yeah.
strange and gothic. And that is all to say, I feel like in the beginning, just the fact that I chose that name was kind of gonna indicate, like, foreshadowing,
Sure.
what I was gonna be writing about. But I think it was just getting into my 30s, and where I'm from, a lot of my family are stay-at-home moms, and society is get married, have kids, and do all those things. And I've just felt that pressure to do that while I'm also trying to pursue my dreams. And so that it just is in a lot of my songs, that what I've gone through.
Yeah. Well, especially it's got to be relevant given just, the political and cultural climate in America the last, 10 years or so, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you're right there at the in the apex of the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, 2017, that's when my album
Right.
yeah, that's when I started this project.
Yeah. So you mentioned this is your fourth project. Where are you at as an artist today, and where do you want to be if you're going to do this for decades more?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think I'd like to I'm doing my own booking right now. Well, I do have a manager who helps with booking, but I do a lot
Hmm.
of lead work. I'd love to get to a place where I don't have to I'm successful enough where I have a booking agent. I have full time. I have a team. I want to get to a place where I have a team. I can go out on the road, can make money, and then I would love to be a songwriter for other artists too.
Sure. Yeah.
Um, and that's one thing I might take a year, because this has been some of the shows I've played. I can do better as far as not driving 7 hours to, Traverse City, Michigan, to play for three people who are the artist and her parents and make $150. I need to make some smarter decisions, and I'm absolutely going to continue my artist project. But it would be really nice to write more with other artists in town also, and start making money off of, their cuts. And so yeah, that would be nice. It's so fun. Where do you see yourself? I'm like, oh, just more successful. I think just more successful so that I can be more artistic. I feel
Yeah.
like this year putting out an album, there was so much brunt work I had to deal with,
Mm.
and I'm like, I need to practice. I need to be creative, and I can't, because I'm doing all this work to just put out this album.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Yeah,
yeah.
good answer. And then you mentioned obviously Chicago and the suburbs and everything, but now you live in Nashville. So talk about that, because that's
Really
two
cool.
two really cool cities for their own reasons. But yeah, and I think you have a song on the new album as a tribute to your new home, right? Called Tennessee. But yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah. I think totally, like a lot of what we've been talking about, growing up somewhere where I didn't know any professional artists, songwriters, anybody in the music industry. It was just a hobby. I was not exposed to it. And so coming to Nashville, it was like, living in Chicago, I lived there for 2 years, and it was kind of lonely, because I know I want to live this creative life surrounded by songwriters and people in the industry. And I didn't have that community in Chicago. And so moving to Nashville, that's one thing I just absolutely love about Nashville, is like, you're just taken so seriously. And yes, that's a job. Like, you can go to school and your friends dad, is a songwriter or an artist or runs a label, you can, or mom. I didn't mean to be only. But yeah, I love that. I can have my little music community. I have
Mhm.
a bunch of friends who are songwriters, but then I have my book club, and none of them are in music. I can have both worlds
Yeah.
here, and I never felt like I could have that in Chicago.
Okay.
So, yeah,
I
they
mean,
just creatives.
it's a common topic because I talk to people that obviously are in Nashville, but then also Cape Cod or Fort Worth, Texas, or Denver or whatever, and everybody's got it. They always have the right answer. Either yeah, if for those of those artists that are in Nashville, it's like yeah, you got to be in Nashville, and for everybody else, it's well, you don't have to be because I'm here. I'm kind of making it work. But I guess if someone was to say, hey Terry, you've got to move to Traverse City, Michigan.
Yeah.
What would you miss the most about Nashville? And like, does that matter, do you think, for what you're trying to do right now?
I'm sure it depends on the person. I think for me, I do thrive with the community,
Yeah.
and um, so I feel like I need that, and you definitely don't. Like, because I there's a great artist in Traverse City, that he's so good, he's amazing, and he's like, no, he makes so much money in Michigan because in Nashville, they don't pay you that much,
Right.
but you go up there, apart from my $150 gig, they will give you 500 to 1,000. You can make that on a weeknight, and if
Right.
you're playing out 5 nights a week, like, you
Yeah.
can do just fine up there, but, yeah, and write, and you can Zoom now and do all those things. So, I've just craved having the community for
Yeah.
so long. And I had a taste of it when I was at Berkeley. And then I was
Okay.
like, I need to create this again because that makes me work harder. It motivates me. It keeps me competitive and really pushing myself.
Okay. Well, obviously you love it. You wrote a song about it. I guess, how did the song Tennessee come about?
I wanted to write a song about Tennessee. I always thought I'd live in New York. I like
Hmm.
New York City. That is it. That's where I need to be. And I never thought I'd ever move south. I've never been able to like settle down. Settling is not settling, but settling down, committing to anything
Hmm.
besides music has been hard for me. And I feel like I really committed to Tennessee. And it's so surprising and shocking. I've shocked myself, but I'm happy. And I bought a house a year and a half ago. I've been here for 6 years now, and I've cultivated all sorts of friend groups, um and so yeah, that was the first this is the first city where I say it in the bridge. I'm feeling for the first time I'm in the right place at the right time, and I felt like I had to celebrate that. And
Good for you.
yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. I live in Atlanta. The South is awesome.
yeah,
Right.
it surprises, I don't know, it surprised me how much I liked it.
Yeah. All right. Well, good. Um, So the new album is out about a month, I guess. What's the feedback been, and is there a song that has sort of surprised you in terms of the feedback and what's resonated with people?
Really Old Woman has, because I almost didn't record that song. It's kind of random and kind of boring, but a lot of people have been that's my favorite song on the album. There's only 4 chords in the whole song. It's like it repeats, and it's not like a big booming chorus, and it was kind of my Bob Dylan song. I kind of wrote it. I don't know how nerdy you want me to get, but like verse, refrain, as opposed to verse, huge chorus. I don't know. It's kind of like the answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind, and just a
Yeah.
short little refrain. But I feel like it speaks to people in different ways.
Okay. Well,
So
good. That's really good. So
yeah.
again, we talked about some of the themes, including resilience. Obviously, you had to deal with the passing of your father, which is never, obviously, never something that you want to go through. But in terms of overcoming struggles and obstacles, are there any other moments in your life that sort of built you up to be more resilient?
Yeah. Oh my god, it's so random and it's crazy, but when I was, 26, 25, 26, I was at Berkeley, and I had I had a semester left, and that's where I was like, "I'm moving to New York in this summer, and I have this idea for how my life is going to go. And I went to Africa with my family the fall break or the winter break. And I came back and was sick and nobody could figure out what was wrong with me. And I had to drop out of Berkeley and I had to move home and live on my parents' couch for 2 years. And
Wow.
so I
Wow.
ended up yeah, and they basically it took them a year and a half to figure out that I had a parasite and not hepatitis. They came back with all these wild things they thought I had, but I lost where I lived, I lost my friends, I lost my work. I for like a year and a half I didn't do anything. I lost 30 pounds and so I had to, and then I actually went back. I wanted to finish. My parents were like, "You don't have to finish. We don't care." And I would know this is going to help me like get my feet back on the ground if I
Yeah.
finish my degree. And so that was a huge thing I had to overcome.
Wow. Well, thanks
Yeah.
for sharing that. I think, so I know that there's an album called Winter, I think,
Yeah.
and you have a few others. Were you writing? Were you able to write at all during that time since you
I
were
have
kind of like
like
laid up or not? Not
I
really?
honestly have not written that much about that time.
Hmm.
Um I wrote a song called 6 Years and it's on my I have 2 EPs. My EP from 2020 and I don't really talk about like this is what happened in the last 6 years, but um I went to Nashville when I was 25 and then I went back 6 years later and I felt and in between that I had a terrible virus that I picked up in Africa. But it was that kind of inspired
Yeah.
6 years. I have not written a ton about it. Uh,
Wow.
yeah.
Did it take a while for them to diagnose it, or did they know it kind of right away and you just couldn't get better?
They tested me for a parasite and I came back negative. And so then they were like, took all these other tests. This was in Boston. And then they thought I had hepatitis A. And then they're like, but no, you don't have it. And I took over like 40 blood tests at MGH, Massachusetts General Hospital.
Yep.
And they were like, "We don't know what you have, but we hope you feel better." And they shook my hand, like, and then at that point, I had to drop out of school because I had missed 6 weeks of school. And then I went through. I finally got a third opinion at Northwestern in Chicago,
Yeah.
and that's when he was like, "There's no harm in giving you an antibiotic," because they couldn't find anything in my body. You can only detect like 15% of the parasites in the world right now, so like we might as well give you a antibiotic. And I felt better in 3 days than I had in a year and a half. And but then it took so long for me to just get my energy back. So that's why I say it took me 2 years because I was emaciated.
So was it just like flu-like symptoms like the whole time, basically, like fever and just
Yeah, well, and like not digesting food. So I wasn't even 100 pounds. 5'4". Yeah, I wasn't 100 pounds and
wow.
just really tired and cramping and not knowing why. So
Okay.
yeah, isn't that fun? That
No.
was
Well, thanks for sharing. Yeah, I didn't
horrible. Yeah,
wasn't
yeah,
quite sure if there was an answer to that, but that was a big one.
yeah.
Yeah. All right.
I feel like every 10 years, something really hard happens
Yeah.
to me. That and then my dad's passing, so
Exactly. Yeah. All right.
yeah.
I asked this of everybody, and I think we were talking before we started recording about sort of the inspiration for this podcast. I'm a big Ted Lasso fan. The positivity, and then teamwork and leadership, and then curiosity. So, at this stage in your career and in your life, I guess, what are you most curious about today?
I think the next phase for me is can I have it all? I'm in a relationship and do I want a family? How do I balance being a creative and having a family? It just sounds really hard. So, but that's what I'm curious about. And I kind of want to figure out next year, how would that look if how do you juggle two? Because I know if I have a kid, I'm going to love the shit out of that kid. And how will that, I love music so much. And like, what will happen? That's what I'm curious about.
Okay. Well, good.
Yeah.
You just have a family.
Yeah, I know. I love my nieces and nephews. I'm one of 4, so
Yeah.
yeah. Maybe
All
it'll
right.
make me writing better.
I mean, if you weren't inspired by the illness, you definitely be inspired by the
Yeah.
motherhood, right?
Yeah. No, good point. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Well, good. Terry Bracken of Bronte Fall. It was a pleasure to talk with you. Thank you for your time, and again, happy holidays. And If you haven't, those listening haven't checked out Not Done Yet, check that out. And yeah, hopefully we can catch you on the road in 2025.
Yes. Thank you.
Thanks, Teri.
Thanks.
All right.
Will I be elegant? Will the kids think I'm cool? Will I be out of touch with the ways of the world? Will it be tomorrow or when I'm 81? Is it over for me already? Because I feel I've just begun. Who will decide the day I get old? Will it be the man in charge of things or my own brittle bones? I'm afraid that by the time the world starts to get it right, I'll be an old woman at the end of my life. Old woman, old woman. They say we're meant for raising children, tending to the home. Our careers are less important, but man, they get to have both. Like pumpkins at midnight, we're old at 35. We're to make the most of our lives before our passions have to die. Decades down the road, the mothers run the world, and will a madam president bring hope to little girls? I'm afraid that by the time the world starts to get it right, I'll be an old woman at the end of my life. Old woman, old woman, any of this matter, the music that I made. Will I regret my choices? Will the joy outweigh the pain? Will I have made a difference? Did I inspire change? And to the ones I love, did I say what I needed to say? Will my failures define who I become? Or will I be proud